over 10,000 students over the last 11 years. We've helped students apply and be successfully admitted to over 15 countries. And we've worked with students across a breadth of unique majors, whether it's just business of denim design, whether it is organizational and research engineering, veterinary sciences, business, STEM, so on and so forth. Come, you want to come in the front? There's a seat right here. I didn't mean to get you nervous the minute you entered. Okay, super. So yes, we've worked with families across the breadth in terms of their interests and majors, and we've helped families apply to, over 15 countries, and our students have been awarded over $45 million in scholarships. This slide is something that I take great pride in sharing, where these are the universities, and as you can see, these are really prestigious and selective universities. Our students have been awarded full scholarships to these universities. And one thing that we have to remember out here, as international students, when will a university want to sort of invest in you? When you bring something to their campus, right? And it's not only about having, yes, a stellar profile is very, very crucial, academically and non-academically, but equally crucial that how are you articulating? How are you packaging that entire application? How are you presenting yourself? Ultimately, when you submit that application, it's like a business proposal, right? And I was on a podcast with this admission officer, and when they were actually saying that when we see applications, it's like business proposals and applicants telling us, invest in me, pick me, right? So the importance of ensuring that the application that you are submitting is true to yourself. Every component is well connected and articulated. That is key. And that is the reason kind of we are sharing this, because it is not only, of course, these are not only competitive universities, but these universities awarding scholarships to international applicants. That's a different, sort of a ball game. Okay, that brings me to a quick introduction to myself. I wanted to just kind of save that for the last. My name is Services at the Red Pen. Been in the education space for a while. Been with the company for over 7 long years. I've spoken, mentored, and evaluated couple of thousands of applications, but more importantly, yes, my background is in economics and entrepreneurship, followed by a bachelor's in interior design, followed by college counseling and independent counseling from UCLA, member of the IECA and the International ACAP. These are prestigious educational affiliations that help us as college consultants stay abreast with the various changes and the ever-changing landscape, access to admission officers. But I think most importantly, I've been going through this journey as a parent. And I think that really helps me sort of resonate and understand every family, every parent that's here. Whether it's like you were just saying, my son was on a different trajectory, now it's completely shifted. Or like you were just saying, he's in the 9th and he doesn't know what to do. Or of course, we have our share of frictions and arguments, heard enough of, Mom, I've got it under control, like stay out of this. Been there, done that. So completely understand where, we all are coming from. And yes, the goal is to start early, understand what is out there. Yes, there are more and more options, which makes it more and more overwhelming, but identify what truly do you seek for your undergrad experience, and then, kind of take it from there. So this is, of course, everything that we're going to be discussing today, that what is it that we can start early with? What is the importance of subject selection? How do you fund your education? Because as I said, that's a key component. And how do you approach this process of, this application process? So let's kind of get right into it. And just before, I actually want to show you a video that I'm going to move into, but why is it that, over the last 2 years, 3 years, you will be hearing many consultants or your school counselors or your family and friends talking about the importance of starting early? Any sort of more and more sort of a hot topic? Anything that you've been hearing in school? Okay. So one of the reasons that, we kind of now emphasize that starting early is key is that the educational sort of competitive landscape has really, really kind of changed over the last 2 years, owing to various factors, whether college is going test optional, whether it was families wanting to cast a wider net, whether it's the cost of the education, right? The dollar going through the roof, so on and so forth. But this is the sort of volume and the spike that countries across the, globe have witnessed. My question to everybody out here is that how many of y'all have a preference for, your higher education destination? We can just do a show of hands. Awesome. Which country? Sorry? US. Okay, lovely. Perfect. Okay. So again, I would take it US somewhere. Any other? What about you, Dheer?
I opened the US.
Okay, lovely. And you know why you want to kind of go to the US. Awesome. Anybody else? How many for UK? Okay. How many for India? Okay, nobody for, I thought we were discussing somewhere India, right? We are open. Okay, fantastic. So this is going to give you a lot of context and some numbers I'm going to now just share to remember that why is it that colleges have, we say that these volumes have gone insane. So let's talk about US because I know a couple of us were talking about the US out here. US colleges have witnessed a spike in their applications like never seen before. So University of California system, how many are aware of? UC Berkeley, UCLA, right? They have received the highest volume ever witnessed in the 152 years of history, over 2 lakh applications. NYU, we've all heard of, New York University, over 100,000 applications. And I'm sure when we all discuss that US is some, a destination we want to consider, we do aspire for the Ivy Leagues as well, right? Now, the Ivy Leagues in totality, the freshman intake, that the first year intake is only close to 18 to 19,000 collectively. I can't even put a number on the volume of applicants from across the globe. So very important to remember that, yes, the times are such that, yes, have your dreams. And the reason I'm sharing this data is not to, kind of overwhelm you, but the reason I'm sharing this is, yes, have your dreams, but it's essential and it's just getting more and more crucial now. Have your targets and safeties in place. Identify those universities that are going to offer you that experience within your targets and safeties. Starting early helps you kind of get there. You can't work in the end in a pressure cooker and then just have like, a blind college list. That's not going to work because the outcome is not probably going to be what you desire because the number of applications that the colleges are receiving is something that, one cannot predict. And another important thing to know, the volume of applications are going higher, but are they expanding their those many seats? So what happens? The volume of rejections also goes higher. And that also is like a ranking, game for them. So again, going back to identifying targets and safety is very, very important. UK has witnessed a spike of, over 30% from India alone. Canada close to 20%, and India is in the running. India, the landscape with liberal arts has completely changed the education sort of perspective, and it's getting equally competitive because firstly, there are only those many, the new age liberal arts colleges in the country. That's why students want to stay back. The seats that these colleges have are still limited. So for example, Ashoka is on that expansion plan now in the next 2-3 years to, open up more seats, but somewhere they're also in the range of 6. An admit rate of around 10%. Korea, again, similar, small numbers, so on and so forth. So India is again very competitive and one needs to plan early for India as well. Okay, so this is a video that is very close to my heart because I know that, you as students keep hearing things your parents are telling you, your school counselors are telling you, your peers are telling you. But I think when you hear your seniors who've been through this process, I think that will really resonate. And these are our students who have obviously been through this process. They are at college campuses, and let's hear what they have to say.
First and foremost, always start early because those essays are really going to take much more time than you think. And secondly, don't look at the rankings of the schools because many people tend to get carried away with those and they only want to apply to schools in the top 20 or top 10. And finally, definitely visit the campuses that you are considering applying to because visiting Berkeley did make a big influence on my decision to choose it over.
So in any STEM course, I would highly recommend that you look up Intel ISF, RSI, the MIT Summer Camp, Google Science Fair, and Regeneron STS. These are things that you can definitely do well in and come here to Stanford.
I think a lot of applicants forget to balance their extracurriculars with their studies because they're so focused on achieving good grades. But my only advice is to keep in mind that a lot of importance is given to those extracurriculars and it plays like an equally important role, so don't neglect that.
Take every single piece of advice that your consultants give you and properly act on it.
I think one of my biggest advice to future applicants would be just like apply to a place that makes you happy, and it's never about the name. I feel it's all about what you do with it, because you could be in a college that's has an amazing name, but if you just literally didn't do anything when you went there, didn't make use of your resources, it doesn't mean anything. But if you go to a place where you're really passionate about and you feel like you can make a change and leave your mark on that campus, I think that's one of the most important things.
So I guess my only piece of advice would be is just be authentic. At the end of the day, colleges are trying to fill their classes with people, not, statistics. And the more you can communicate who you are as a person and your voice, the more that they will be endeared to you. Some of the best places to do that is your essay and your recommendation.
There's a ton of advice I'd love to give future candidates and applicants. But if there's one thing I could tell you is, if you're right now sitting in your house and preparing for admissions and you're 2-3 years down the line to apply, don't try and cheat the system. If you try and cheat the system, you might be successful and you might make it to Harvard. But at the end of the day, you're just cheating yourself. Because what's the system's point? The system's point is to make you transform on a personal and academic level.
Start everything early, get a calendar, be super organized, practice time management, because when you're in college, you're by yourself and you really need to do stuff by yourself. And when you practice it early, it's really beneficial to
So again, I hope that is something the students especially enjoyed online and offline, because that is advice from the horse's mouth. And each of them obviously just going on exactly the same lines that we are saying. Okay, so moving on to global applications. Again, many of us out here are not sure that, which country do we want to kind of consider, where are we leaning towards? So that's absolutely fine. But the only thing that we need to understand and remember is that it is creating a strong foundation right now. That is very important. And understanding which country's application process is complex versus what. So this is something that will help you sort of understand that the US is the most complicated application process. It has many moving components. It has components that requires planning way earlier on. Yes, the UK is slightly straightforward. Canada is somewhere in between. The Asian countries are again straightforward, and India, as you can see, is marked with an asterisk, is because the Indian liberal arts colleges, it's mainly that we are referring to as our Indian liberal arts colleges, they also follow the same evaluation and the holistic process that the US follows, where all 4 years of high school are in a way evaluated. And that's the reason, one has to start thinking and planning early on. Okay, so I was kind of just mentioning that, yes, you do not need to decide right now, right, that which country, what program, what major, all of that. But as high school families, what is the one thing that you need to be aware of? We need to be aware of what is the evaluation process and what are the components that admission officers across the globe are evaluating, right? That is something that we need to be aware of so that we can drive that process accordingly. And irrespective of the country that you want to apply to, these are the 3 components, the components that you see in gray. These are the main 3 components or the buckets that I say are, considered for the evaluation process. The size of these bubbles are in direct proportion to the weightage that it carries in this process. So again, the biggest bubble, and I'm going to ask, a couple of the students out here, for example, Dheer, sorry, I keep picking on you, which is the biggest bubble that you see on the screen? What do you think data implies?
Maybe standardized test scores, curriculum scores, for example, the IB score, the IB score.
Absolutely. Data is basically the student's academic reflection, the student's academic potential. And why is data so important across the globe? Because ultimately, what is college? A college is an academic experience. Colleges want you to succeed. Colleges want you to, feel that you are drowning and, you can't sustain the rigor and transition out, because the minute you transition out, attrition rate and retention rates are affected. That affects their rankings. So when we work with students and, when we are talking to students, day in and day out, we do tell them, be mindful that your wealth. all your academic reflections, those are the metrics that are like the backbone to your application. Your other two bubbles that you see, voice and talent, and I'll just come to that in a bit, will supplement it. It will not substitute it. Your academics from 9 to 12th, that is what is most important for US universities. UK primarily sees somewhere, mainly the 10th and the predictives. Canada, again, somewhere in between. But overall, it is, the biggest bubble across the globe. Coming to, and of course, data opens up doors. But what is it that gets a foot through the door? You can see the other two bubbles, voice and talent. Voice and talent is academic reflection. What are you bringing to my campus as a student body? How are you adding to, the vibrancy to my campus? Or as a teammate, what are you bringing? Colleges like to sort of brag, big time about diversity. They like to brag about which student brings what to their campus. And that's what voice and talent is all about. Voice and talent are those components that helps you distinguish yourself from your peers. Now, we have to remember as high school students, when colleges are, evaluating you, it's a reference-based evaluation. So, for example, you are from JB Petit. So you are obviously going to also be going forward to Aditya Birla. When you submit an application from Aditya Birla, are you going to be compared directly to a student, say, from DY Patil or from a cathedral? No. You're first going to be compared to the Aditya Birla, applicants, then other IB kids from the city, so on and so forth. So important to remember that we have, as high school students or high school families, how are we distinguishing ourselves from our peers? Because there are those many kids that a university is going to kind of admit from a particular school. So reference-based evaluation is very important there. Identify things that truly interest you. Identify things that you want to challenge yourself constantly with to know a little bit more and more. It's a challenge to your intellectual curiosity. Colleges do not want to see 20 zillion things. Do 2 to 3 things and do them in great depth. That is key. Like consistency, continuity, and depth. Like a CCD is what I tell my family is a secret sauce. That is what really colleges kind of value. And voice and talent is all about that. Your essays, your letters of recommendation, everything that you're doing outside of your academics that tells the admission officers what truly interests you. And I can give you a couple of case examples on how all these three are important. It's not one over the other. It's not one below the other. It's all of that parallelly. So for example, let's take a student who had amazing voice and talent, but not the strongest of data. So this was a student from our previous cycle. I can't take names because we signed privacy clauses. He was a student in a prestigious IB school in the city. He was interested in applied mathematics and comp sci, a lead guitarist in his school band, the founder, also selected by one of the world-renowned guitarists to play in a band. He had researched a paper on how AI helps enhance video performance skills. He had developed an app, very interestingly, on how an app can help support playing notes, more accurately, how that app can help playing and composing music with other band players. He had a 1510 in his SATs also. But what did he not have? His grades overall from 9 to 12 were not something that was reflecting, this part of the voice and talent. So, of course, the student was very cognizant of the fact, yes, we had our dreams, we had our targets and our safeties, but it was the targets and the safety that we were successful with. So, again, a classic example of everything in his extracurriculars, and when families or students are wondering what more can I do, it was not about doing 20 zillion things. He had done the right things related and aligned to his interests truly, whether it was applied mathematics and comp sci and guitar. He had he had some amazing essays, but it was somewhere the data. But so that is something that we need to remember. Another example that I can kind of give where data was strong but voice and talent was not. So we had this US citizen. Again, for families are aware of the A-level curriculum, he had taken 5 A-levels, which is really, really challenging, A-stars and all. He had taken 10 IGCSE subjects, A-stars and all. He had a complete perfect score, which is a 1600 on the SATs. Multiple award winner of, Olympiads internally from school. And if I remember correctly, he was also the recipient of some major Cambridge Science Award and stuff like that. His voice and talent, his depth in his extra strength of this student's actual intellectual potential, right? He had the most amazing essays as well. He was a student interested in, physics. His essay was about how quantum physics helped him to identify and challenge gender stereotypes. He felt liberated, when he kind of went through that process. But what was sort of not in place, or I would say what was something that could mirror his strength of his academic potential, were the voice and talent. Of course, again, a student cognizant of this fact had that, list of a balanced dream, target, and safety. But we know that, if that depth, which was reflecting in his academic, his admits would have been way, something that I think he had in his dream list. So again, very important that all these three buckets or bubbles, as I say, the only thing that is not in our control is this orange bubble that we see, which is institutional priorities sometimes, right? So whether an institution that year has a priority to fill their class probably with squash players, whether they're looking for, students that they want to probably admit from a particular geography or a particular country, even from India, maybe they are done with the metros, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, and they are seeking for students from the smaller towns, correct? So that is something that's not in our control, where institutions have their priority, whether it's financial aid, whether legacy status, whether demographics, so on and so forth. So very often, sometimes we have families like, I had this and my friend had this and my friend was admitted and what happened to me? That's something that we'll never know, because sometimes institutions have their priorities in place. It does not define you. It's just something that we will not know. Moving on to, I would just like to touch upon India. Anybody, interested to know about the Indian landscape and considering the India? Okay, super. Okay, so what is this new thing that, we've been hearing about liberal arts in India, right? Do families have an understanding of what is liberal arts? How many of us understand what is liberal arts? Any show of hands? It's absolutely fine. Okay, how many of us feel that after liberal arts, the professional pathways are limited? You would, right? Yeah. Very, and that's a very, very common myth. Many families feel that liberal arts is only studying social sciences or humanities. Like, I'm sure many of us kind of feel that, right? Or many of us, of course, feel that after that, what is the professional pathway? What happens? But let me kind of bust the myth out here. Liberal arts basically does not mean studying social sciences. Liberal arts basically means interdisciplinary education. Liberal arts means you specialize in a particular subject that can be applied across the board. Okay, I'm going to ask a couple of students some questions out here. Would you consider bio a liberal arts, or it would not fall under the bucket of liberal arts? Somebody? Would not fall under the bucket of liberal arts. Okay. What about computer science? Falls under the bucket of liberal arts? Does not. Math does not fall under the liberal arts. Okay, so I'm so glad, because that's a big, myth that I'm going to bust right here, right now. Liberal arts does not mean only social sciences. All the subjects that I just listed right now, they all fall under liberal arts. Pure bio, pure chem, pure mathematics, economics, comp sci, they're all liberal arts. So one does not need to ever feel like, okay, if your child says, I want to go down the liberal arts pathway, and you as a family will be like, okay, yeah, like, after that, what? No, liberal arts basically means that, okay, if you want to major in math, go ahead, go for it. It's a fantastic major, and only a math major opens up so many doors. Once you're a math major, we have this mindset, right? The conventional mindset that, okay, you have to commit yourself to a business, to a law, or to a medicine, or to an engineering in India, right? And that's why we don't understand that what is the future of liberal arts. But for example, if you go forward with liberal arts, you are a math major. What happens then? A math major can practice, whether he can be in the financial world, he can be in the business world, he can be in data science. LinkedIn and Glassdoor have, reported reports that in the next 2 years, data science, which is math, basically origin of math, is going to be driving the world. It is going to replace comp sci, right? We are seeing AI today. It's being a game changer, again, math. So math opens up many doors. Similarly, whether you're a pure bio student, whether you're pure chem, or also comp sci. Today, comp sci falls under the bucket of liberal arts. So important to remember that liberal arts is specializing or knowing in depth about a particular subject that can be applied across the board. Liberal arts gives you that flexibility of doing a major and a minor. Liberal arts basically helps you develop in an overall 360-degree sphere rather than developing in a lateral dimension. So that is the beauty of liberal arts. Are you aware that world leaders today, corporate leaders, these are all products of liberal arts? The owners of Star World, Hewlett Packard, YouTube, these are all products of liberal arts. Indian corporate stalwarts, Anand Mahindras, all these visionaries behind Ashoka Kriya. Why did they ensure that liberal arts in the country sees this shift in revolution and change? Because we were losing our youth to the West because of liberal arts. And that is what is now in the country. That is what families definitely are considering, because you are getting the same education, you're getting that infrastructure, facilities, abroad partnerships at a fraction of your cost. So yes, liberal arts is something that every family and students really want to consider now, because students do not want to commit to conventional streams where they have to know what they want to study. They want to go to college. They want to explore college level courses for a year or two, and then decide that what is that I want to commit to. And liberal arts gives you that flexibility. So just this is a little bit about liberal arts, where the Indian colleges also follow the holistic evaluation process, just like the way US does. And that's why if you ever are thinking that India is going to be a safety and I can just send in an application last minute, that's not happening. You have to plan ahead of time, and it's getting insanely competitive. Again, the traditional system, of course, is polar opposite. It's mainly based on the exams, whether it's engineering, whether it's law, whether it's medicine. We know that, we have to, of course, be prepared with that exam rank, and that's how we kind of go forward in the Indian system. Any questions on Indian liberal arts? And I'm happy to take it right here also. Okay, so I'll move forward. So start now. What is it, that we are saying that you can start now? What are the key components, especially for students who are in grade 11? What are the things that you can start? Application forms. There are some of them that are open. Resume. Start getting a resume in place. Very, very important when colleges are going to be visiting your schools very soon. You need a resume handy. Essays, I'll just touch on that. Planning your, standardized tests. College research. This whole sort of, the biggest takeaway from this session for families should be, take this time to research colleges, because I kind of started with that, right? Where volume of applications received by colleges is going through the roof. So let's identify where do we really kind of, which college is giving us the experience that we seek for ourselves. And of course, the school checklist, which is recommendations, so on and so forth. A brief timeline for, of course, students who are currently in grade 11. So they understand that what is it that we're working towards. If you are applying to the UK, and of course, it's medicine in Oxford and Cambridge, that's the first application deadline, which is 15th October. If it's the US that you're considering, US offers you two sort of rounds. One is the early round and one is the regular round. The first early round is between 1st November to 15th November. Then, of course, is the Jan, which is the 1st December to 1st Jan to 15 Jan, which is your regular deadline. Canadian, UK, European deadlines are 15 Jan to 1st Feb. And European universities like Erasmus, Rotterdam, so on and so forth. And yes, beyond that is all their Asian deadlines. So this is a timeline that you all should have. And start working backwards. This is my first deadline, and what is it that I need to work towards? Application form that I just said, for many of you all can start working on that. Like the Common App. Common App is open. You can start creating your basic profile, education sections, all of that. UCAS will be opening by mid-May. The University of California California campus portal opens up by August. So also keep an understanding that which forms open when, because you can start filling out those sections. Application essays. Again, essays is a component. I know many students will cringe, procrastinate, or some students may feel, yeah, okay, fine, I will, it's not going to take me any time to write these essays. But what are college essays? Any thoughts on this? What are college essays? What kind of, yes? Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
These are trying to look for exactly why I'm choosing their college.
Very.
Not something generic like saying just prestigious, for example. You could say that about any of the top universities.
Absolutely. Spot on. Anybody else having any other thoughts on essays? Okay, so essays, and as everybody out here kind of us with that, yes, essays come in many layers to understand many layers of your profile as well. Essays are considered deal breakers. Admission officers, I'm going to show you a video right after this, from the horse's mouth itself. Essays are a component that admission officers are most excited to read because that tells them a little bit more about you, something that they cannot see on the other parts of your application. That's not reflecting on your transcript or your recommendation letters or, your extracurriculars. It's your chance, your opportunity to tell the university something more about you. And essays are of different kinds. There are reflective essays. There are certain essays which just want to test your creativity and intellectual curiosity. Let me just give you a few examples. For example, there is an essay prompt. What advice would your wisdom tooth give? What advice as a high school student would you give yourself if you had to go back in time? Those are all reflective essays. They want to see how creative can you be with something that, that vague. Then there are some community kind of essays that, for example, there are various kinds of communities, whether it's a religious community, whether it's a neighborhood, whether it's a family, ethnicity, interest. Which community do you align yourself or do you identify yourself with? Got to make you think, right? You can't just be any standard. They want you to think and understand which and where does your identity, fall strongest. There are other community essays like, give us help us understand what part of your environment, neighborhood, or upbringing, has influenced you. So again, that's reflective. And then there are, of course, university prompts about as simple as, as the gentleman at the back said that, for example, why Boston University? Now, if you are talking about, you're keen on applying to Boston University for business, there are another three, I'm sure there are another 1,000 universities offering the same program. So why me? And these prompts are what colleges have, looking and seeking for in your applications, because it's not a prompt that it's just there like the Common App, which is, mandatory. These are prompts that tells them what they are seeking to understand from you as a student. And each college's mission statement is a really, really good place to understand what is it that the college is seeking for. So do give that mission statement a lot of importance when you are surfing through your, college websites. So that's a little bit about, of course, the US colleges. The Indian colleges are again somewhat reflective. It's a blend of what have you done, your upbringing, your community, your passion, so on and so forth. The UK is slightly more straightforward. It's a 4,000 character personal statement, but again, a big change out there. It's going to be discontinued. Grade 11 students, y'all are not that lucky, but the next year, I think you are a 10th grader, all the 9th graders out here. The personal statement is going to be discontinued next year. That's another change out there in just the last few months that I was just saying. And something that I want to share from the horse's mouth, because as I said, admission officers are very, very excited about reading college essays. They say that is a component that tells them a little bit more about you, but it has to tie into the other layers of your application. Your application has to come together like a beautiful piece of a puzzle or a jewelry where each piece is connected. It's not about being scattered. So your essays have to talk about who you truly are. And let's hear what admission officers have to say. This is the University of Notre Dame admission officer. And yeah, let's hear what they have to say about essays.
I would say authenticity is really the biggest indicator of interest in an institution, but also just of the quality of the student's application. When students have taken the time to craft something that is really about them and really sharing is something that we haven't already learned, that's the most meaningful essay that we could read. And it doesn't have to be something that is a huge life event, or it doesn't have to be painted with a lot of high vocabulary. It can be a very simple story that really shares a lot and helps us know the student that much better. Most admission reps are going to be reading the essays after they've looked at all the other components. And so those essays are sort of like the bow on the present. So we really just wanted to be the most reflective of who you are and who you've already shown yourself to be throughout the rest of your application. I think the biggest or the biggest mistake students makes is kind of, or the biggest mistake students make
of Wake Forest University, again, a liberal.
And I think that as long as they present an essay that's really authentic to who they are and genuine and sounds like them, then that's the best thing possible, because they'll land at a university that is a good fit for them. I always tell students, if you're not funny in real life, don't be funny in your essay. If you would not use the word ubiquitous in real life, don't use it in the essay. And so, you know, just be genuine to who you are. And if I would write your essay and kind of work on it and think about it and sleep on it. Don't rush it, I think also is another good advice. And then have someone who knows you read it, maybe not for critique, but just to see if it sounds like you. And I think the best written essays are the ones where a person can say, I could just hear your voice in my head when I was reading it. And so, you know, there is no bad essay topic, but I think that it is the chance to grow and to really show the university why they're a good fit for each university.
I think that a supplement can go one of two ways. You can move towards the highly technical side of things and write some synopses of classes we offer, professors' research, who seems intriguing to students. But it can also take a much lighter tone and talk more about the social side of things and how you love New Orleans festivals and Mardi Gras, and the fact that it's a traditional campus within the city, the fact that we have Top Chef style test kitchens in our dorms, right? So all of these sort of pieces that you wouldn't really know from Wikipedia. You would have to start following us on social media, doing some of our virtual sessions. That's what we look for.
Okay, super. So one important, you know, again, an insight tip is that for essays, for crafting impactful essays, strong essays, we are all looking for that, you know, why component. Universities today are taking a lot of effort to share lots of information, current information on social media. I was listening to this podcast by, you know, the Yale admission officers, and they say that admissions is taking that effort to put that information out there, whether it's on their website, whether virtual sessions, whether Instagram posts. They want students to avail of that information, use it, and identify that does this sort of align with you, and then weave it in if that's required in your essays, right? So another common piece of advice that we've heard through all these admission officers, and that's what even we as counselors say, be true to yourself. Do not think that, okay, this one is writing about this, that's a really cool essay, let me write about the same thing. No. If your essay is simply about how, you know, your journey every day when your father used to come to drop you, you know, to school, and there was something in that car ride that got you connected to your father every morning, that makes a strong essay. So think about what, you know, has always left an impression, has always been close to your heart, and, you know, work on that. So that is a little bit about essays. Going forward with profile building. I know we all keep saying that build your profile 9 to 12. What is profile? How many of y'all wonder what is profile? How many of y'all feel, okay, profile still sounds very vague to me? Okay, I'm glad. Super. So profile basically means, of course, your academic layer, how are you doing academically? But profile also kind of encompasses that what interests you? What have you done year on year? And when I kind of said in the beginning, consistency, continuity, and depth. Profile does not mean you have to do all these things. These are just options that we've given, that all of these fall under profile building, whether it's a passion project, whether it's a summer school, internship, research, certain online, offline courses, anything in music, all of that falls under profile development. And we have to remember that, again, I'll go back to saying that it's depth over breadth. Don't, you know, get carried away, or, you know, don't listen to the noise that, okay, I have to do an internship, check. I have to do a community service, check. I have to do an online course, check. I have to do a research, check. It's not that way. It's really not that way. And I can give you so many examples where a student has just done research and has been successful at the most competitive universities. I'm just going to give you one small example. There was a student it had started off with a small project, had gone to his native place with his parents on, one of those holidays that families want to take you just to be connected to your roots. And he saw that energy was a major sort of a shortage in that village. He wanted to then do something about it. And what he kind of started doing was powering water bottles to make them as solar powered bottles. When he did that, he realized, okay, I kind of see that there is a major challenge in the synergy or, combining different energy resources. He then did a research paper on that. He finally took it forward, and that one activity, he actually powered solar lamps. He provided energy to, 20 homes. It was one activity done in great depth, consistently in various ways. Maybe through a little bit of research, then actually creating something, then actually giving it back. That's also called community service. He giving it back to the villagers is community service. He didn't have to go and, construct, washrooms. That's not community service. It was not that he had to do beach cleaning. So community service is also about what you truly give back to your community, given what you truly are interested in. So let's understand that when we talk about profile building, it's about building your skills, your interests in a very authentic and organic capacity. It's not about checking boxes. We very often have families saying, but I've not done an internship. You think I have do you think I have a chance? I'm like, why this, internship is not mandatory? Colleges have not asked for that. So let's remember that these are various ways in which you can continue building your profile, but the key component is identify what interests you. And out here, I'm just going to pause for a second, and I'm going to ask you to open up your folders. All of you have a folder in front of you. There is a worksheet in that. To a little bit about everything that I've just said. There is an activity sheet. So the first question is that what subjects have you selected based on your academic interest, major, and career goals? So whether you have something in mind, whether you can start listing that down out here. Then give us a glimpse of your academic profile building roadmap. Have you thought about anything? Again, many options out here. We can take 2 minutes and you can just start listing things. Profile building roadmap. This is going to be a really good starting point, so that you've got some, pen to paper and something to now kind of take it forward with. Let's take 2 minutes, let's fill that out, and then we'll continue. Yes, as of right now, yes. But do have them sanction this. The online audience, sorry, yes, the in-person audience is filling out a roadmap. Some students here, some parents here on behalf of their students. So just give us 1 minute and we'll continue. And this worksheet is going to be some food for thought for the weekend also. Will make for a good dinner table conversation, I think. Can I move ahead? What we're going to do is, of course, this worksheet, do take it back home. Do have your kids also fill it out. There is a barcode right here at the bottom. You can just scan this barcode and you can schedule an appointment with one of our senior consultants, and we'll be more than happy to discuss this, because we also kind of then get an understanding that where are you also at. So do make a note that there is a barcode, and it's also, sorry, Prishma, you're saying, where is it? Oh yeah, yeah. The barcode is also at the registration desk. The barcode is also at the desk behind. So you can, there are many places where you can just scan the barcode and you can have your kids meet up with us and we'll help you kind of take that forward. Okay, so moving forward with subject selection. How many of y'all are aware about the importance of subject selection? Do you think subject selection is key? Or do you think subject selection somewhere falls, a little below in the sequence of, academic profile building? Very important, absolutely. And I'm going to show you a slide. This is a Boston University admissions rep. Sorry, because I was on a webinar with him and I've taken this, so I've not been able to enlarge this. But what he's saying is that irrespective of whatever it is that you want to study, whether you want to study philosophy, whether you want to study psychology, whether you want to do theater, whether you want to do music, what is it that they will first be looking at when they are seeing your transcript? Is it that they're going to see the board that you're coming from? Is it the GPA first? No, it's first the rigor. They first want to know what is the rigor that you've challenged yourself with. And why is rigor so important? Any thoughts on that? Why is rigor so important for them? Yes? Super, love it, absolutely spot on. Anything else? Rigor for them is important because students change their major after they come to college. They are aware that they do not want 15-year-olds to be sure of what they want to study. They want students to come to college and explore. But how are they sure, or how do they know what is the rigor that you'll be able to challenge yourself with at college? This is the indicator. The rigor taken at school. That tells them what is the rigor that you'll be able to tackle in college, right? And what is considered rigor by them? Any idea on that which are the subjects that are considered rigor for them? I'm sure some of y'all have, because you for sure, because you're in grade 11. Okay, yes. Okay, okay. Anybody else? Any ideas on that? Yes. Super. So rigor basically means your math, your lab sciences, which is your bio, physics, chem. These are the first sort of the bucket. I think we hear our students, they want to drop also. I don't want to take one more math tuition. I don't want to take two more, science tuitions. I'm not going to study medicine in the future. I'm not going to become a doctor. I'm not becoming an engineer. So let me just drop it. I'd rather get a higher percentage dropping these subjects rather than taking it and getting a lower percentage. So what do you think is, the right thing out here to do, given what the Boston admissions rep is saying? Yes.
I would think you're rather wanting to get a 6 in the HL and a 7 in the SL.
Okay, that's a very valid point, and yes, great sort of insight. But that would take a little bit of a longer conversation, but also because the math AA, HL, SL is directly connected to what is your intended major. But you are along the right lines. Basically, your math, your pure sciences, your core languages, and your core social sciences, history, geography, that's considered rigor for them. They will first look at that rigor, then they will look at the overall sort of the GPA. So for example, if we have a student who has scored say 70% and has taken this rigor of math and 3 sciences versus a student who's probably scored 85%, but has taken say a combination of subjects, which is EVS and BMM and all, what do you think will be considered as a stronger applicant for the admissions? Absolutely. The 70% who's challenged themselves with more rigor, that's a stronger indicator for the admissions to know that what is the rigor that child is capable of tackling. So very important to remember that when our students or when our kids say that, Mom, I'm dropping math, I'm dropping science, I'm dropping, XYZ, tell them it's not that, these subjects is not that you have to kind of only take them because if you want to be a doctor or an engineer. These subjects are so important to communicate to admissions that you are capable of managing and tackling rigor. So I hope, for families online and offline, the definition of rigor is, kind of clarified out here. And that is, and I don't know if you all can read it, but that is what the admissions rep is saying. He's saying at least 4 years of English, 3 to 4 years of math, 3 to 4 years of lab sciences, 3 to 4 years of history or a social science, and 2 years of a foreign language. I know the font is too tiny, but that's what the rep is kind of communicating. Okay, going on to what is college research. I have started the conversation that it's imperative that we take the time to research colleges. How do we research colleges? What is it that we seek when we start that research process? And these are all the various sort of sub buckets that one should be looking at. Whether it is plain and simple, the location. Today, families, they undermine the importance of climate. You may feel that, yes, I will be very comfortable in the winter, but the brand is more important. You will be surprised with the number of families that I speak to day in and day out. In fact, this is the time of the transfer process. And there are so many families, that tell me that I didn't anticipate that the winter will actually really, really pull me down. I really need to shift to a warmer place. I've had a family I just spoke to recently saying that, I didn't realize that a small college was not the right fit for me. I want to be in a bigger environment. Another student kind of mentioned that I want to be in an urban environment. I want to be in a city. So there are so many. One student had something very interesting to say, and that when it comes to academics, he was in a trimester-based system, and that was too fast-paced for him. He's like, I wish I want to transfer to a college which is a semester-based system. So even those small things, looking into that really helps if you start in time. But these are all the various things, whether it's academics, the rigor, understand what is the average GPA that the college is, and this is all information that's published on their website. The average GPA, the average standardized test scores, it's all there. So whether it's academics, what are the admission timelines, how many rounds do they offer? Are they offering early decision, early action, regular, so on and so forth. Of course, the tuition and finances, and we have EduFund to help us with that. Hopefully, then they don't need to look at this bucket. I'm hoping Arindram and Dr. Neeraj. Of course, university life, certain university life is certain campuses are really, really huge, right? The public universities. That university life where you need to understand that, am I okay to be in a student body of 25,000, 30,000? Am I okay to be in class sizes of 1,000? Or do I want to be on a smaller campus? Am I seeking for tighter student-mentor relation and interactions? Or am I happy being a fish in a huge pond? These are questions that students need to ask themselves. They need to reflect that where do I see myself thriving, and then start listing down those preferences and helping and researching your colleges accordingly. And of course, I think I've covered all of that. So that is important when it comes to college research. Any questions on that so far? Okay. Another hot favorite topic of late, because families day in and day out that I speak to, like, ma'am, the colleges have gone test optional. Do I really need it? Why do I take, the SATs or the ACTs? Basically, standardized testing means SATs or ACTs. That's the common exam that levels a playing field for universities, where if you are applying, of course, say, many of us want to apply to the US, there are students applying from the IB curricula, ISC curricula, A-level curricula, state level. How do they level the playing field? How do they compare? So the SAT or the ACT for donkey years have been used by universities to level the playing field. Colleges have gone test optional. And I know that families have this common question that colleges have gone test optional, but do I need to take that? So let me kind of give you some background and some context out here. Colleges have gone test optional because for them, they have to be fair to every student across the globe. A student sitting in a small town in China, Shanghai, where borders had not opened up, or a student sitting in a small town, say in Pathankot or Faziabad in India, where there are no testing facilities. They do not want to discourage those students from applying to their colleges, right? And the volume of applications that they increase, that affects their rankings. So again, there is a whole back-end story out here. The reason that colleges have gone test optional is so that they can be fair to students across the globe. They can attract quality applications as well. But when you are submitting an application, say from Mumbai, you are going to be compared to your peers, right? At DY Patil or Cathedral or JB. There are going to be students who've taken the SAT and the ACT, right? So they are going to be wondering that why did you not? And for years together, SAT and the ACT has, as I said, leveled the playing field. There are many universities that have reinstated the SAT or the ACT. In fact, University of Florida, there are 12 state colleges, they did not even waive it during the COVID. Georgia Tech, Purdue, MIT, they've all reinstated the SATs and the ACTs because that also helps them control the volume of applications. They've also seen a surge that they've not been able to tackle, right? So the SATs and the ACTs, in my opinion, for certain really competitive majors, I do tell families it's not test optional. It's going to be in your benefit to give that college one more metric when you are competing against such a competitive pool. So yes, I would suggest definitely try and get a good score at that. And even we have data, and I think I'll show you that. We have data over the last 2 years, and because we are speaking to admissions rep, day in and day out, we are on, webinars, conferences with them, where competitive colleges like Tufts, Northeastern, Franklin and Marshall, Colgate, they've shared data with us that over 60% of their admitted pool have submitted test scores. So again, that is just one more point out there. And just for families to know that the SAT is changing its format this March. How many of y'all are aware of that? Yeah. So there are big changes happening in the SAT March onwards, and this is the first time that they're rolling it out with international students. The SAT is going digital. It was a 3-hour exam, which is now a 2-hour paper. Calculators were not allowed, but calculators are allowed now. You will get your scores within a couple of days, not 2 weeks. So interesting changes. And of course, the whole intention out here is to make the SAT more student friendly. So, but one other thing I kind of do make a point of that, because it's going to be rolled out for the first time this March, I suggest that, either you are done with your SATs, or then take the test dates, which are the later part of the year. So you have some mock papers to practice or refer. Right now, for students taking it in March, there is nothing. We don't have any previous papers to compare or refer to. Yes, so this is what I briefed you all on this, that should you take these standardized tests? Yes, we've got data that taking it gives one more metric to universities, and definitely does help that. Universities do say that, of course, they're truly holistic, and it's always been one part of the process. It's not a factor that completely swings their decision, but yes, it is one more metric. So you're giving them, one more metric to really know your academic potential. And that brings me to a little bit of the last part of, this presentation, where we've spoken about profile building. We've spoken about identifying the right 2-3 things. What can you do? What can you not? And sometimes this is challenging to navigate, overwhelming, and you don't know what to do. And that's exactly, what we thought of as the Red Pen that we are doing. We are bringing you a summer programs fair just in 2 weeks now. It's going to be held in Mumbai as well as Delhi, where we have close to over 30 service partners. They are basically profile building mentors and catering to a breadth of interest, whether it's business, whether it's coding, whether it's hospitality, whether it's STEM. There is something for everybody, standardized testing. So when I know that you are trying to find out that, okay, what is it that I can do? I went to this information session. I've heard so much about, find those 2-3 things, but what is it that should I do? So I think this is a great place. If you all want to, you all can meet people in person. The consultants are going to be there. The service partners are there, whether it's research, whether, as I said, a breadth of, interest. You can scan this barcode again, and, you can register for it. And it is all day on Saturday and Sunday in Delhi. That brings me to the very last bit, which is the cost of higher education. How many of us feel the importance of truly, understanding that this also is something that should be a key component when we talk about, planning higher education? How many of us feel that, okay, I wish I had thought of this way early on? All of us, right? Exactly. All of us as parents, and with the dollar rate, we are parents going through that journey. My son, I remember when the college journey started, we were at a $71. He's a rising senior and it's 83. And I'm like, wow, we never planned for that. Anyway, so cost of education, I think, is a concern, or it's not a concern. I think it's a topic that I think that awareness is very, very important. And for that, we have, and I would love to invite Dr. Niranjan to the stage out here, where you can help us understand how families can and again, if families want to take a snapshot of this, this is the breakup country-wise. But Dr. Niranjan is going to help us understand that how can you plan for this? How can you save for this? How can you invest for this? Again, as I said, EduFund is the first and only app in the country that helps you plan and invest for higher education. They have currently 18,000 investors, planners, right, doctor? And yes, I would love to know a couple of things from your end, a little bit about EduFund, and then I know a couple of common queries that my families always have.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, doctor.
So we started our journey in 2020. EduFund is India's first investment app, which basically helps parents save and plan for their children's education. It's one of its kind where you can plan for education by first finding out what is the cost of the education. In most of the calculators, you will see that people only just take the inflation numbers. Actually, it's more than that. As Sheetal pointed out, dollar rate. In April 2022, the dollar rate was 76. Today it's 83. That's roughly around 10%. 10% and the financial year is yet not over. So what we do is when you try to calculate the cost of education, you can select the countries, you can select the courses where your child is going to go for the college, the time period which you have, and then we have a backend engine where you can actually, with the help of which we basically extrapolate what will be the future cost. In addition to this, living cost is generally neglected by the parents. So we also take into consideration the living cost and also the scholarship and the loans which you can get. On the basis of that, you get a finite number which you can actually start preparing for. So once you discover this finite number, you will be able to start your investments journey. If in case you do not, accumulate the entire corpus, you will be able to apply for a loan. We work with different loan partners, and then we of course work with counselors like Red Pen, and towards the end we also work with immigration companies. We have our own sister concern company which is into immigration, which also fulfills the last leg of the journey, which makes us the India's only app which is solving the problem of planning for education.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, Dr. Niranjan, that are most commonly, that I have been asked. Are there loans without collateral?
Yeah, so there are two types of loans. One is loans with collateral and one is loans without collateral. In with collateral loans, you basically mortgage your asset. In without collaterals, there's no asset which is supposed to be mortgaged. What you do is, in the case of a non-collateral loan, you can get as much as 75 lakh rupees of loans without collateral. And the rate of interest is between 10 to 15%. There are multiple banks, NBFCs, financial institutions which provide these loans, and you can get these loans even before the admission. And there's no EMI which is supposed to be paid during the holiday period.
Thank you so much for that. My next question is, what are the interest rate range, when we talk about these loans in the country, outside the country, the international ones as well as the Indian loans?
Certainly. So when you talk about the interest rate, there are two types of interest rate. One, where the banks have a standard fixed interest rate, which does not change during the entire period of borrowing. And in the second case, some of the banks also use a metric where they use a premium over the benchmark, where they use either an MCLR or a repo rate. And it differs on the basis of country to country. For example, in the case of India, you have interest rates ranging from 7.5% to 15%, both for secured and unsecured loan. For a country like US, you have interest rates between 4.5% to roughly around 6.5%.
Thank you so much. My next question is that how is the interest calculated when, the loan is dispersed to colleges semester-wise, right? Colleges do not expect you, it's okay to pay semester-wise. You don't have to pay the entire fee together. So my question is that how is the interest then calculated when it's, dispersed in parts?
Okay, so when you borrow the funding from the bank, the interest rate is calculated on the basis. There's a simple interest rate which is calculated during the period of study, and that amount is added to your principal, and this final amount is your major borrowing on the basis of which you start your EMI payment, and this is when the compounding starts. So during the period of the course, you pay a simple interest which gets added to the principal, and once your EMI starts, which is after the course, the interest is compounded.
Thank you so much. My next question is that how do you make the most of your savings account? Because of course, savings is one way and investing that, and loans is one way. You helped us with a little bit on the loan front. What about the savings?
Okay, so to answer on the savings, I think it depends completely on the horizon the parent is having. Say, for example, for parents who are whose children are in the age, whose children are in standard 9 and above, and are just going to go to the college in the next 1 to 3 years period, the best way would be considering the currency inflation and the considering the currency depreciation, that INR has depreciated significantly over dollars. I would suggest that parents should shift their money abroad and put it in a US ETF, which is very, very safe. What will happen is that you will be able to hedge your currency depreciation. But this is majorly for parents whose children are in standard 9 and above. For parents whose children are younger, they still have some time and they can consider investing in the mutual funds or maybe stocks. And that is again dependent on the time horizon. If you have roughly around 5 years to plan, you can consider balanced portfolio or a dynamically asset allocated portfolio. And if you have a significantly large time period, probably you can take a direct equity exposure or a small cap kind of a portfolio.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj, so much. And Dr. Neeraj and Arindam Semgupta, founding members of EduFund, are going to be seated at the back of the banquet. So you can feel free to sit with them one-on-one. I have something that I would like to share on the same front, that yes, I am a parent who has again been through this part of the process. I wanted to, as parents, one of the goals that we had, again, only son, staying with in-laws, pampered to the core. So for us, financial literacy along with that undergrad journey was very important. So we as parents also, wanted him to understand what it is to study on a loan. We took it for 2 years. It made so much of a difference in the student's development. Financial literacy, how to service his own loan, how to ensure his GPA is not tanking because he has to get internships, working on campus because he has to pay for his weekend plans along with servicing these loans. So my kind of, advice sometimes I tell families when they do discuss this with me is that taking a loan does help your child understand the importance, that financial awareness, and taking that responsibility. So yes, once you are happy with his GPA and we're like, okay, you're on the right track, now we'll ease off. So that was just some fun bit that I wanted to share. And that brings us to that brings us to the end of this presentation, the very last bit, where going back to starting early, what is the end goal? The end goal is that we are successful in achieving admissions to the universities that we aspire, that we've dreamt of. And when we've had students this cycle who've really started early, taken into account all these things that we've also just kind of discussed, these are the colleges that we've seen our students succeed. So that was a lot of me talking to all of y'all. I would love to take some questions and anything else that I can help you guys with. We also have the team who is going to be seated right here. So do feel free if you want to even, our consultants will be seated there very soon. But any questions for me in the meantime? Yes. So Ashoka University, Kriya University, Symbiosis School of Liberal Arts, Kriya, Ahmedabad University also offers liberal arts, Shiv Nadar. There are quite a few now, 10 to 11, really good ones. Any other questions? Super. So I think, why don't we, try to answer your questions, I think one-on-one, because these are require, I think, one-on-one conversations. So thank you so much for taking the time. I hope this was insightful. I hope you've got food for thought for the weekend and you've got a starting point. Thank you so much for attending our session this month. Thank you. Thank you.